3. Daily sadhana of selfrealization for evolution of inner self. The two doctrines of self-realization, Atma Bodh, and elemental knowledge, Tattva Bodh, are like the twin streams, Ganga and Yamuna emerging from the Himalayas, which are considered holiest amongst the holy rivers of India. The two rivers merge at the holy city of Prayag, Allahabad. Self-realization means an understanding of reason behind one's existence, a comprehension of why a human being has been created, the way he exists and what the Creator expects from him. It also means adoption of a mental attitude, planning, programming and action to fulfill his expectations. By Tattva Bodh, we mean acquiring an in-depth knowledge of capabilities of human body, its proper utilization and its final destiny. Apart from this, its objective is eradication of misconceptions in respect of interaction of human beings with material objects of the world and reorientation of existing concepts thereof. In a nutshell, a total comprehension of Chaitana, the vital force which controls all the attributes of mind, is self-realization, Atma Bodh. The science of interaction of Chaitana with living beings and material objects is Tattva Bodh, elemental knowledge of the philosophy of human existence. One who has fully understood this concept is deemed to have fulfilled the objective of Gyan Sadhana, sadhana of wisdom. Although sadhana of life is to be performed 24 hours a day, a proper initiation, an effective beginning can only be made by a specified process of contemplation. It involves a threefold action. 1. An understanding of form, objective and utilization of life and formulation of activities accordingly. 2. Following a dictum of each day a new birth and each night a new death, that is, preparing and acting on a plan of physical and mental activities to the optimum utilization of life. 3. While retiring to the bed in the night imbibing a feeling of daily death and consequent detachment to the world. Amongst the above three concepts, the first two are to be contemplated early in the morning at the time of awakening from sleep and the third one in the night at the time of retiring to bed. Each morning, soon after awakening from sleep, one should put up three questions to self and seek one's own answers to them. In order to always keep in mind an understanding of form, objective and utilization of life and thus constantly remembering the right source of action without any deviation, one should practice repeating the following question-answer session each day. Ask yourself the following three questions. Question 1. We know that in bestowal of His grace, God is never selective. Why then human being has been blessed with special capabilities of speech, contemplation, literacy and numerous other avenues of comforts and conveniences? Why has He taken extra care to make a man superior to other beings? Answer. There can be only one answer. He was in need of companions or co-workers, to make His garden, which is this world, more beautiful and well orderly. Hence to fulfill this objective, He created man, equipping him with supreme competence and multifaceted physical and mental capacities. The comforts and conveniences were provided to implement the divine objective more effectively. Question 2. What is the harm if one reserves the advantages of the available conveniences, talents and resources exclusively for personal utilization? Answer. The only logical answer could be this. In comparison to other living beings, whatever is available to us in excess, as intellectual and financial advantage or any other talent, are sacrosanct gifts of the Creator which have been kept in our trusteeship exclusively for the benefit of mankind. After retaining the minimum of the resources for maintenance of body, the remaining are to be utilized for welfare of the world, of which humanity is the part. Question 3. Is this human body which has been given to me by God as an extraordinary and rare gift being properly utilized? Answer. The answer will be, life is meaningless without being cultured, temperate, industrious, benevolent, gentlemanly, good-natured and helping. In order to make it a habit of imbibing these virtues, increasingly high ideals, civility, hard work and courage should be appropriately incorporated in one's own life. The foregoing questions and their answers are at the root of the philosophy of spirituality. Realization of the prime importance of these aspects in life and a deep contemplation thereupon induces one to adopt codes of behavior based on a distinct utilitarian philosophy in future. Proper understanding of this philosophy changes the hopes and aspirations of the person. A self-realized person can be easily identified from his words and deeds. Those who can begin to follow the path of self-realization through the above methodology find perceptible changes appearing in their codes of conduct and working attitudes. Contemplation on the dictum of each day a new birth and each night a new death serves the dual purpose of sadhana of self-realization, Atmabodh, and sadhana of elemental realization, Tattvabodh. Immediately after awakening in the morning, make it a practice to contemplate that this day you have been born for the first time and are going to live just for a day till you go to sleep. The day is, therefore, to be utilized following the most ideal codes of conduct. In order to translate this concept into action, a program of work for the period from leaving the bed in the morning to retiring for sleep in the night is to be chalked out. The schedule should be tight enough to avoid any possibilities of slackness or lethargy. All details are to be worked out beforehand. Without leaving a scope of lethargy, the schedule should appropriately integrate time to be spent in earning livelihood, taking care of personal requirements, providing for family responsibilities with maximum possible devotion to social welfare, upasana, daily religious rituals, swadhyaya, study of spiritual religious literature, etc. For taking rest, the period during the night is considered adequate. A habit of early to bed and early to rise should be cultivated. A habitually careless person is like a deranged person. Such individuals face failures in life and are despised and shunned because of their inactivity. Soon after leaving the bed in the morning, one should decide upon a balanced program of activities for the day. It is also to be kept in mind that an idealistic approach is to be appropriately integrated in the work to be carried out. Such actions, in which evil ambitions, greed, self-interest, deceit and immoral objectives are involved, may appear utilitarian but are invariably associated with ingredients which are harmful to the society and degrade the self-esteem of the person. On the other hand, simple tasks, performed with incorporation of principles of social welfare and self-evolution, fall in the category of karma yoga. Such deeds may not be apparently benevolent, but they do serve the same purpose. It should also be remembered that those coming in contact or under the influence of one's deeds should not be able to find any scope for criticism for the ulterior motives or misguidance. Each and every action of an individual should incorporate honesty, truth, duty consciousness and welfare of others. Whatever is done with this point of view is considered ethical as well as good for the society. Persons with noble thoughts never indulge in any action which is harmful to the society, even if for this, they have to starve. Performance of tasks for social welfare in exchange for appropriate remunerations also comes in the category of karma yoga. Throughout the day, whatever work is done should be performed efficiently, keeping an idealistic approach in view, so that the day may be regarded as fruitfully utilized. In course of work, whenever lethargy, carelessness or unethical thoughts begin to interfere because of old habits, immediate corrective measures should be taken. Just as one does not tolerate a fly on the face even for a moment, extreme care should be taken to ward off incorporation of any undesirable element which involuntarily interferes with one's thoughts and actions. For this, one has to keep a constant watch on one's own self. Evil habits are like experienced thieves. In order to protect oneself from them, one must play the role of an alert watchman. The thief should never be allowed to enter the premises. Even if he dares do it, he should be ejected by force. One has to be always in a state of extreme alertness. Throughout the day, one must remember that this day has to be utilized for welfare of others, and for this all plans and actions must follow ideals of the highest order. For this purpose, there is to be a minimum involvement of self for maintenance of own body and family. When such a resolution is adopted in the morning for the entire day and strictly adhered to, one would feel proud and satisfied for that day of his life. At the end of the day, when there is time to retire to bed, imagine that curtain is going to fall on a beautiful play. Imagine that this world is a theater where I was given a role to play for today, which I enacted to the best of my capability. Whatever mistakes were made will be remembered and will be taken extra care on the next day to avoid any recurrence of the same. Many things were given to me for playing the role. There were also many associate characters. Whatever company and interaction was required has been utilized. Now leave is being taken of them after a hard day's work, and with detachment I am retiring to relax in the lap of Mother Sleep, Death, whose protege I am. With this concept, we practice vairagya, a total detachment to the consequences of thoughts and deeds in the world. This is an experimental action devoid of involvement in the results, anasakti. None of the objects available to me belong to me, and none of my companions are related to me. All of them belong to the Creator and are products of their own creation, actions. I am neither an owner of anything nor master. For me, a proper interaction with each animate and inanimate object guided by a sense of duty is justified. Any sense of belonging and personal affiliations and associated vanity of being a master or owner are meaningless. Each night while going to bed, it should be assumed that one chapter of life has satisfactorily ended, and the ensuing period of sleep is akin to the eternal peace of death. Thus, each period of sleep during the night is likened to daily death. A practice of this concept gives immense spiritual power and benefits. Generally, we remain oblivious of death. Hence, the possibility of understanding the value and meaning of life always eludes us. When something remains within our reach, we neither fully realize its actual significance nor its appropriate utility. The moment we lose it, we come to understand how much important it was for us, and had we known it earlier, we could have put it to a better use. Amongst all the living beings of this world, human life is the most precious gift of God. No other form of living organism has been provided with so many conveniences. Those who have the foresight for appropriate utilization of the valuable gifts of God should be particularly on the lookout for their proper opportunities. The acid test demands utilization of this rare human life for fulfilling commensurate objectives. Even the living beings of the lowest order are busy in activities of sustenance and procreation. As desired by the Creator, sanctity of human dignity lies in utilization of life in the twin objectives of self-benediction, Atma Kalyan, and human welfare. Those who persevere to work for this cause achieve the higher status of enlightened souls, Mahatma, and saints, Dev Atma, and eventually become one with the Almighty, Paramatma. On the contrary, an entanglement in base human instincts degrades the person to lower forms of life, wherefrom he has to struggle again from one form of being to another, to justify regaining of his erstwhile status of human being. For those who are knowingly ignoring this stark reality, it is sufficient to comment that knowledge, incapable of promoting action, is worse than ignorance. The period of daily sleep in the night should be perceived as the eternal sleep of death. On retiring to bed, perceive that according to the dictum, each day a new birth and each night a new death, death has arrived. The one-day-long life is now coming to an end, and death in the form of sleep is approaching to pick up life to its lap. The conception should be as though the vital force of life has come out of the body and is flying high in the bright sky. The dead body is left lying on the bed. Arrangements are being made for its last rites. One's own existence as life is vital force which is independent of the body. The form of the body, in spite of its having been under control of soul, vital force, has a totally separate existence. The concept of independence of soul from the body, though frequently talked about, is seldom felt. There is only a faint momentary realization of transience of body while accompanying a funeral procession, but soon, like flash of lightning, it is lost in oblivion. Only when a scenario of one's own death is seriously visualized the wisdom of self-realization dawns upon the person, which is the fundamental percept of spirituality. When one goes to sleep considering death as the daily bed companion and constantly keeps in mind its consequences, the reactions are capable of showing the path of self-evolution. Daily contemplation of death, while going to bed, if carried out deeply, makes one think about many newer aspects of life. With this one concept, it becomes more explicit that human life is the supreme gift of God and man has been made its custodian for making the beautiful garden of God, the world, better, more cultured and orderly. The futility of indulgence in decoration and comforts of the body and absurdity of forgetting the importance of self-evolution are clearly understood. Only then begins a strong urge to modify one's mode of living. Human body is only an instrument. It has been given to us by the Creator merely for fulfilling the high ideals according to His wish. If this rare opportunity of human life is lost in trivialities of indulgence in sex, greed and weaknesses of mind like craving for material objects and in satisfying vanity, and the real objective of inner self is not fulfilled, it would only be called a catastrophe. The true perspective, however, appears only when there is an awareness of imminent death. Otherwise, one continues to live in a stupor of self-oblivion, thinking of nothing else than merry-making. For one who loses sight of this objective in life, fulfillment of greeds and worldly entanglements continue to be most favorite pastimes. Death is the supreme teacher. When accepted as bed companion, it teaches the real value of life, its proper utilization and norms of living much better than what any wise man or scientist could do. While going to sleep, one should have the feeling of total detachment to the world as well as indifference to the outcome of the needs of the day, like a karmayogi. A vairagi or sannyasi is one who detaches himself from the percepts of ownership of the worldly objects and beings coming in contact, that is, one who prefers to be gardener than owner of the garden. Such a reflection produces a discriminatory far-sighted prudence. Compliance of duty becomes the sole desire. The moment one realizes, God is owner, I am only the caretaker, the entire perspective undergoes change. The accruing advantage is twofold. 1. There is an easy relief from futile activities, and 2. The person becomes free of unnecessary worries and anxieties. Only those who have sportsman spirit enjoy life. The characters in a play enact various roles, but the latter do not leave much impact on their lives. Wisdom lies in doing one's own duty with full honesty and alertness, considering the above policy as the focal point of one's contentment and fulfillment of responsibilities. When desires are delimited to doing only one's duties and the truth of dependence of consequences on circumstances is accepted, the constantly troubling anxieties are dissolved without any effort. One who welcomes failures and successes without any distinction and has achieved equanimity may be called Tattvadarshi, one who realizes the supreme truth, or a true scientist. Only such an individual is able to enjoy the drama of life and keeps himself as well as his associates in a state of perpetual happiness. Renunciation, vairagya or sannyas, refer only to this state of mind. These are the persons who are called anasakt karmayogi or sthit pragya or pragyavan. When one goes to bed with this frame of mind, he gets a sound sleep, feels relaxed and is able to feel refreshed on awakening. Indian religion is based on Varna Ashram, fourfold classification of life, with duties assigned according to qualifications for each quarter of average age of man, taken as 100 years. Religious disciplines demand that in the last phase of life before death, man must live as a sannyasi, an ascetic. Unfortunately, the old traditions are fast vanishing, but when they were prevalent they were strictly adhered to. When due to some reasons, one could not imbibe sannyas, till his last moments, there was a provision to provide it symbolically as Twara sannyas, the process of which took only a short time. Hence the foretold process, if adopted in the daily routine while going to bed, would be no less than a high level of spiritual sadhana. The concept should be this: those being served throughout the day belong to the garden of the Creator. One's responsibility was fulfilled by tending to them. Now, at night, the charge is being handed over to the master while proceeding on leave. Whatever wealth, prosperity and status was given by him for custody was his. Now leave is being taken empty-handed after handing him over his own property. The body and mind too were on loan from the repository of God. The journey back home is being performed alone after depositing these two at the appropriate place. These are the precepts suggested for the period of retirement to bed. A practice of going to sleep with visualization of this pictorial concept produces a mental state comparable to that of a sannyasi or vairagi and is sufficient to produce an alert state of self-awakening for the next 24 hours. This state of mind is to be revived day after day, in the manner suggested above. Next comes the routine of the morning. The day should begin with a conviction that the opportunity given by the Creator as life for the day is to be utilized to the best of advantage. In the period beginning from awakening to the moment of putting one's feet down on the floor after leaving the bed, only this thought should remain in the mind, that the new birth, lease of life for the day, is most welcome. With this in mind, best possible plans should be chalked out for optimum utilization of the day. Within above period, a framework for the activities of the day may be worked out with a sincere integration of concepts promoting ideals. This process of contemplation is like morning Brahma Sandhya, a spiritual ritual. It can be practiced very easily without any problem of constraints of time, procedural details or arrangements of provision of implements of rituals. This is known as the Yog Sadhana of Atma Bodh, self-realization. For the evening Sandhya, the dictum of each night a new death is required to be imbibed deeply and faithfully in the conscience. While doing so, there will be reactions against old habits as strong as the degree of imbibition. Even without resorting to any change in style of dressing, attire, and disruption of normal worldly activities, this is the easiest way to conform one's thought processes to that of a sannyasi or anasakt yogi. This sadhana of Tattva Bodh also does not leave any scope for excuses of non-availability of time, paucity of resources, lack of interest and the like. The periods of sunrise and sunset are known as Sandhya. According to laws of spiritual science, these are to be utilized exclusively for Atma Sadhana. Assuming sleep as night and wakefulness as day, the period of Sandhi, junction, of these two has been termed as Sandhya Kal. Thus the Atma Bodh Sadhana in the morning while leaving the bed and Tattva Bodh Sadhana in the night while going to bed may be regarded as sadhanas of high order capable of influencing everyday living. These sadhanas are unique because of the ease with which they can be practiced as well as for their capacity to influence human life. Whoever succeeds in understanding and implementing the formula of each day a new birth and each night a new death, fully and comprehensively, is assured of a speedy progress towards self-evolution, commensurate with his efforts.
4. The two foundation stones of self-evolution, internal progress. Manan or self-appraisal and Chintan or self-advancement. The structure of progress of the inner self is supported on 4 pillars. Ancient Indian scriptures describe Brahma, the deity of creation, as having 4 faces in 4 directions. It is believed that each of his 4 mouths pronounced the basic tenets of wisdom, science, and religion as 4 Ved which lay down the codes of conduct for the mankind. A similar concept was made use of in the ancient fourfold classification of working classes of humanity, Varna, now misconstrued as caste, by virtue of lineage. The quartered division of an average span of human life is the 4 ashrams, each with its specified code of conduct, to follow the same principle. The 4 basic requisites for the evolution of the inner self are: 1. Atma Chintan, self-advancement. 2. Atma Sudhar, self-improvement. 3. Atma Nirman, self-reformation. 4. Atma Vikas, self-development. These disciplines are, however, coordinated and practiced collectively. It is like taking a meal in which all dishes are consumed in a proportion at the same time. One cannot live on bread for a few days and then change over to butter alone for the remaining days. The school curriculum prescribes teaching of, say, language, mathematics, geography and history. It would not serve any purpose if each subject is taught exclusively in successive years. Clothes are generally worn in combinations. Is it possible to wear only shirt for a year and then trousers during the next, or keep on wearing a part of the dress neglecting others? Coordination is the essence of work. Writing is not possible without coordination of paper, pen, ink and fingers. Extending this concept to the human system, we find that human body is composed of 5 basic elements, elementary extrasensory constituents of body. The framework of the body is imparted animation by the vital force, Chetan, which also has 5 components, established by spiritual research. Individually, neither of the 5 elements nor components of vital force will be able to sustain human existence. As an analogy, take a pantry. The pantry needs 4 basic resources: the fuel, water, food material and utensils cum cooking equipment. These are bare essential items for preparing a meal. For self-evolution too, one has to coordinate 4 types of activities, viz. A. An endeavor to identify one's own undesirable traits. B. A strong consistent effort to resist the inherent evil instincts, till these are totally eradicated. C. A perseverant endeavor to appreciate and imbibe those virtues which have so far remained alien to the character, and D. To enlighten the largest possible number of people with the wisdom thus acquired. These 4 activities are required to be coordinated. The wise have termed them as Atma Chintan, Atma Sudhar, Atma Nirman and Atma Vikas. The above 4 disciplines have again been grouped together in a couple of twin activities, viz. Manan and Chintan. Manan encompasses self-appraisal and eradication of undesirable traits. Chintan includes self-reformation or self-advancement. Both of these activities have been considered as inseparable constituents of sadhana of the inner self, Atma Sadhana. One is advised to find a minimum of half an hour for this purpose, either while leaving the bed in the morning or going to the bed in the night, or at any other time when one can afford to be relaxed and peaceful in a quiet place. Manan should be taken up as the first step, followed by Chintan. A tailor first cuts the cloth and later takes up stitching. In a surgical operation, incision is done before bandaging and application of medicine. For construction, foundation is excavated first before building the structure. Both these activities are interrelated and are taken up more or less simultaneously with a small time lag. Nevertheless, Manan has a priority over Chintan. For this purpose, however, there are no prerequisites of preparations for body and mind as necessary for other religious rituals. Nor any implements are required. Peace of mind and silence in the environment suffice. If mornings or evenings are not in spare, any period during the day may be chosen according to one's convenience. The duration of half an hour too is not absolutely necessary. This is only a working norm and may be extended or reduced as required. Nevertheless, maintenance of a fixed interval of time is recommended. It is a well-established hypothesis that a work plan based on a well-designed time structure and regularity produces much better results than haphazard and unsystematic efforts. Atma Chintan is in fact a self-counsel and self-advancement. It may also be viewed as an attempt at identifying one's own shortcomings and evil traits. In the laboratories, we carry out analysis and classification of materials to find out their constituents. An autopsy is carried out to examine conditions of internal organs and to find out the toxicity in the organs, if any. Pathological examinations of stool, urine, etc. are needed for appraising the conditions of a patient. Appropriate treatment becomes possible only after diagnosis. The same analogy holds true for self-analysis, which is carried out first with self-counsel or self-appraisal. What should be the attributes of a noble, refined and cultured citizen? Which virtues are required to be associated in the qualities, actions and nature of this individual? To begin with, let us conceptualize a framework of such an ideal person. It is not difficult to fix the norms for the level of human dignity and its status. The qualities expected in an ideal man are a systematic daily routine, briskness in work, intellectual competence, proficiency in social interactions, far-sighted wisdom in contemplation, strict adherence to self-discipline, dependence on self and self-respect. He should be generous in character and humble in personality, radiating happiness all around. Simplicity and nobility are interrelated. To be known as a cultured person, one is required to systematically coordinate the inherent talents and the available resources for a useful purpose. A truly civilized man is fully aware of his duties and responsibilities and considers it obligatory to fulfill them. In a true sense, these attributes are to be acquired essentially in order to justify one's existence as a human being. Only that person has the right to be known as a civilized member of human community who is adorned by the quality of compassion for fellow human beings and possesses attributes worthy of a human being. To achieve the objective of self-counsel, one is advised to conceptualize a person possessing aforesaid virtues as an ideal and make a critical appraisal of one's own self with reference to the former. In absence of an ideal or standard, it is not possible to know the level of personal virtues and vices. A comparison with the wicked would only make us feel superior, whereas on the other hand, looking upon men with superhuman achievements would only bring in dissatisfaction and discontentment about our present inner status. Standards are necessary for any type of measurement. A critical appraisal cannot be done without comparisons. It is absolutely necessary to know the standard for appraising the facts. Without being aware of normal body temperature, it is not possible to prescribe for a patient suffering from high fever or subnormal temperature. Knowledge of average blood pressure is necessary for finding out abnormalities of hyper or hypotensions. In the same way, some standards of nobility and humanitarian attributes are to be conceptualized for critically analyzing whether one's own living norms are of low, medium or high order. We must ask ourselves whether the evil traits for which we dislike others are present in our character, whether we have those vices for which we despise others. Are we giving a treatment to others the like of which we would not like for ourselves? Whether the shortcomings we are preaching others to reform are part of our own character? Do we actually possess those qualifications for which we expect praise and status? When an attempt is made for self-appraisal by asking such questions and honest answers are sought to them, the good and evil traits inherent in character can be easily classified. The task is, however, very difficult. Each one of us suffers from the weakness of self-prejudice. Eyes are always looking outwards without an awareness of happenings behind retina. Ears, which are sensitive to external sound, are incapable of hearing the continuous beat of sound of air passing through the lungs. We generally do not like people who point out our weaknesses. In absence of any previous experience, one feels bewildered while attempting self-appraisal. No one undertakes analysis of one's own character. Hence, the process is not effective unless a capacity of strict impartial judgment is developed for identifying one's own weaknesses. With this, it becomes very easy to take up the next phase involving proper appraisal of status of personal character with a view to attempting reform. There is only one way to get rid of evil traits, and that is to struggle with one's own self. The war mentioned as Mahabharata and the objective insisted upon by God incarnate, Sri Krishna in the Gita, refer to this very internal struggle. The manifestation of divinity in human form is always a consequence of determination of divine powers to dispel the chaos and disorder prevalent in the human society, adharma. Incarnations, messengers of God, appear for this very purpose. Whenever divinity makes its presence felt in the human heart, the person tightens his belt to struggle against the evil traits which have become integral parts of thoughts and behavior like close relatives. From time to time, each incarnation has been determined to eradicate the forces of evil and assist in reinstatement of virtues. This process can also be viewed as dissociation of vices from personal life and augmentation of ideals therein. In whichever soul the divine light appears, its first indication is seen as reformation of the latent tendency of corrupt thinking which instigates the person to mischievous actions. These are akin to Tadka, Surpankha and Putna, demonic forces mentioned in Indian epics, which had to be destroyed to uphold virtues. Corrupt thoughts are overcome by confronting them with noble thoughts, and in practice, bad habits are to be replaced with new good habits. In this process, a type of internal struggle begins. This transformation is not possible casually by simply wishing. It requires strong will and power of determination. For inoculation against a disease, vaccine is produced from the virus of the same disease. To remove a thorn, a sharp implement is needed. A physical assault is resisted with a stronger physical force. To defeat an army, another army is needed. For destroying a strong tank, anti-tank missile is used. In a struggle of any kind, commensurate force is required. Similarly, the tendency of corrupt thinking can be counteracted by application of equally strong currents of righteous, noble thoughts. In order to extricate oneself from the sphere of influence of wickedness, an endeavor is to be made to enter into an environment of virtues conducive to moral upliftment. It is possible only by taking recourse to study of spiritual literature, Swadhyaya, and by seeking company and guidance of the spiritually wise, Satsang. The counsel of close associates is generally conducive to promotion of selfish and mean activities. Rarely does one come across an environment which is counteractive to the former. Under the circumstances, one is recommended to study and imbibe the ideals propagated by great men and saintly superhumans. Their biographies and struggle in life for promoting ideals would become inspirational guidelines. It is generally not possible to meet such persons. Even when an interaction becomes possible, the time available is too short for fully comprehending their ideas and activities. Moreover, there is a world of difference in their preachings in public and actions in personal life. Under the circumstances, the only simple and foolproof method is to study such useful literature daily and regularly, which is conducive to suggesting solutions to problems in life and is helpful in upgradation and progression of moral values. However, the resolve should not end only with reading. An enthusiasm should also be generated for imbibing the advocated ideals in practical life with a view to finding out ways and means for adopting them. The transmutation requires a continuous planning and structuring and restructuring of the conceptual framework. This is the background against which the battle of Mahabharata within the inner self is waged. Actually, The war begins with maintenance of a strict vigilance to restrain the familiar chain of evil thoughts from emerging, and the sooner they appear, eliminating them with a counter force of virtuous ideals. Whenever temptation for sexual aberration arises, a movie of the consequential harms may be conceptualized, and a panorama of advantages and illustrations of abstinence may be visualized. This is how the tug of war between the good and the evil thoughts begins. With the strong will and wisdom of a judge, victory over the latter is assured, which are bound to make a hasty retreat. Truth has the power of 1,000 elephants. The power of devil may appear intimidating and strong. Nevertheless, when confronted with the acid test of truth, it dissolves into nothingness. Within a short interval, it is found burnt out like a wooden pan in fire, or disintegrated like a paper boat in water. Evil traits are habit-forming. Time and again they keep on appearing in the behavior. Like the aforesaid struggle of thoughts, a strategy of struggle for actions, Karmsangharsh, is, therefore, to be adopted. In a war, generally an infantry is found to be more effective against an infantry, and an air force against air force. The keepers of prison maintain a constant strict vigilance against any possible disturbance by the prisoners. Likewise, not only a strict watch is to be kept on the tendency of corrupt mind, one has to be vigilant at the same time against evil traits. As soon as they appear, they are to be resisted. Whenever an urge for action based on bad habits arises, it should be resolutely replaced with a desire for correct course of action, and with a strong will a firm decision has to be taken to suppress the undesirable and adopt what is right. In this process, only the persons with weak will need worry about failure. Others who can muster moral courage are assured of success accruing from establishment of high ideals in life. The strongest of evil cannot withstand the least confrontation of a vigilant mind. Even a robust thief would think twice before entering a house, the inhabitants of which, though infirm, are wide awake. Likewise, the least resistance of good traits is sufficient to ward off strongest of evils. In the beginning, attempts are made to resist the lesser evil habits, later progressively conquering the worst, older and deeply ingrained undesirable traits. Earlier smaller successes are conducive to increase in courage and self-confidence, with which undesirable traits are gradually eliminated and replaced by virtuous tendencies. One should not feel contented only with the initial success and continue the efforts incessantly. It is not possible to get rid of the evil traits acquired during millions of earlier lives by simply making a resolution. Indian spiritual research has established that human life is the ultimate state of progressive evolution of soul, in which the latter may have to pass through millions of lower forms of living beings in the biological kingdom. When resisted, these traits retreat and lurk in some corner of the subconscious, and at some unexpected moments appear with a much greater impact. Hence, a constant vigilance is needed. Throughout life, one has to be incessantly careful to ward off recurrence of evils of thoughts and behavior. The third phase of self-reformation consists of a planned endeavor for imbibition of characteristics of an ideal man, incorporating his attributes of character, actions and nature. After eradication of the evil, imbibition of virtues is also necessary. When a beautiful garden is being laid, preparation of ground by removal of wild growth constitutes only half of the work. The concluding half comprises planting, growing and maintenance of suitable flora. Remedial treatment of a disease serves only part of the objective. Subsequent convalescent care with appropriate food, rest and exercise are also to be looked into and provided for. The reactions of attempts at shedding of lethargy should appear as development commensurate with interest and promptness for work. After getting rid of habit of carelessness and irresponsibility, a person should appear alert, absorbed in work, regular and systematic. Human dignity is manifested as ideal traits like warm-heartedness, civility, nobleness, far-sightedness, wisdom, honesty, self-restraint, frugality, simple living, compassion and yearning for service to others. A persistent endeavor should be made to adopt these virtues so that they become deeply ingrained in nature. People in general lay emphasis on accumulation of wealth and are ever busy utilizing their energy, time and mental capability. Those who are interested in self-progress are advised to consider wealth and prosperity secondary to the celestial attributes of virtues. The one and only way of achieving success in both material and psychic world is to develop a high level of character. However, somewhat greater effort is needed for making virtues as part of nature than what is required for earning money. Wealth is also obtainable through inheritance, at times with little effort by coincidence, loan or donation, whereas for collection of virtues one has to mobilize resources bit by bit. It is totally result of one's own endeavor and enterprise. With imbibition of a habit of high level of contemplation and morality in behavior, there is progressive augmentation of real wealth of virtues in character. These achievements are, however, beyond the reach of persons with a fickle mind. It requires a firm resolution, resoluteness, persistent endeavor and unending perseverance. Hard work is prerequisite to any achievement of consequence. Cultural evolution of personality is not possible without going through stresses and strains of noble thoughts and deeds. For achieving the ultimate goal of imbibition of an ideal personality, the aspirant continues to look for necessary ways and means. As a consequence of these very endeavors, an overall transmutation towards a higher level of personality begins to appear in course of time. The last phase of self-evolution, Atmotkarsh, is self-development, Atmavikas. It means increasing the sphere of self-perception to an increasingly wider field. Persons whose interests remain confined exclusively to the conveniences of own body and mind are humanoid worms, Narkitak. Next comes the category of men who keep their interests confined within the limits of their kith and kin. They are called humanoid animals, Narpashu. Majority of people in this world are found engaged in thinking and acting conforming to the above two classes. Their self does not transgress this limit. Thus, their precious life is spent in moving along the vicious circle of wants of family members and relatives. However, this is to be kept in mind that a human being has a higher status in the biological kingdom. In comparison to other life forms, the Creator has provided man with many unusual capabilities to be regarded as his celestial deposits kept in trusteeship. He expects them to be utilized for making humanity prosperous and well-cultured. Human body is the supreme creation of God. It has been created for fulfilling high objectives. He has made an extra effort in creating man only with the expectations of associating man in his orderly management of the creation. Ignoring this mysterious object of human existence and usurping life in just for eating, procreation, greed and attachment, lust and longing, would mean that the value of this celestial gift was not appreciated. The soul had remained undeveloped in the lower form of life in earlier births and the purpose of life has been defeated. The dignity of human being, who is considered as the prince of the creation, lies in widespread expansion of his field of empathy. After taking care of the body and family appropriately, he should have a part of his working capability, time, intellectual capacity and resources to spare for human welfare schemes. With expansion of the field of perception of intimacy with one's own body and family, all living beings become interlinked in the same chain of empathy, showing moments of happiness and adversity in equal measure. When the concept of man changes to consider entire humanity as his family, Vasudev Kutumbakam, Vishv Parivar, none in the world remains alien, Atmat Sarvabhuteshu. With this, the interest of the individual in self transforms into the welfare of all. There appears a yearning to provide for everyone what was earlier desired for one's own self. one begins to extend the same behavior and cooperation to others, which he expects from others. He begins to think and plan for social welfare, human welfare and service to others. On reaching this state, the field of activities of such a man expands much beyond those of an average human being, and his area of operation becomes augmentation of virtuous traits and righteousness in an extensive area. Such persons throw their personal mean ambitions in the dustbin. They reduce their needs and after fulfilling the bare necessities, utilize their total capabilities and resources in the divine cause of human welfare. They derive so great a pleasure in their endeavors for the progress of the country, religion, society and culture, the like of which the self-centered persons cannot dream of getting even on acquiring a large wealth. Historical accounts and epics give vivid description of the glittering characters of such superhumans who had reached the pinnacles of success by following this very path of self-development. In the social sphere, three types of persons, viz. Saints, reformists and martyrs, are given maximum respect. In the spiritual field too, there are three progressive stages of evolution of human soul: the Mahatma, evolved soul; Devatma, divine soul, an intermediate stage of evolution; and Paramatma, the ultimate evolution of soul, when it becomes inseparable from the divinity and is relieved of the necessity to appear in human form. For going through these stages of evolution, one has to follow the exclusive course of self-development described above. A change of individualism into humanitarianism forms the basis of world peace. The further we are able to extend our sphere of self-interest to encompass others, the more we may feel assured of having found the highway to the goal of human life.